At Grand Rapids Chevrolet GMC in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, we have the trucks. Over 47 new Silverados and Sierras sitting currently on the lot with more to come. We have all the options: LT, RST, LTZ, High Countries, ZR2s. We have heavy duties. We have Sierra, SLT, Elevations, Denali's. We are equipped for the truck you are looking for. With great rebates currently, with up to $12,500 off on select models, now would be a great time to take advantage of savings and get yourself into a new truck today. Grand Rapids GM in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
We're 20 seconds in. All right, you guys ready? 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to the Tea with Ms McGill Show from the Ring Sports Bar and Grill, where the beers are tall and they're very cold. We were presented today, as always, by our friends over at Fortune Bay Resort Casino. Make plans today to visit Fortune Bay Resort Casino on beautiful Lake Vermilion. Fortune Bay offers 172 rooms in a smoke-free resort environment, indoor pool, full-service marina, RV park, world-class golf. These guys have hit, our special guests have hit some balls on that golf course. Several dining options, bar, and of course 24/7 gaming. So get up there and get your game on. Visit fortunebay.com today and plan your trip up there immediately. So like I said, these two are special guests. Well, first off, it is Puka speaking. Is the star of the show, Coach Reed Larson, and we've got two very special guests. We've got a blue streak to your right, my left, Danny Tomassoni, a blue jacket. Oh. And we've got a blue streak to my right, your left, Dante Tomassoni. And we're going to kick it around here on episode 84. It's already year 4. We're in episode 84. We're excited about that. Real quick, if you didn't catch last month's show, it didn't get a ton of traction, but we did an interview. Go back and watch that one with Dick Beardsley. He's a Minnesota legend. He was the world's greatest marathoner at one time. So if you're into peak performance, that kind of thing, what it takes to be the best in the world, I encourage you to go back and look at that one. I think you'll love it. Like I said, just a total legend here in Minnesota. So that was our June show.
Hey, you've got to be a little intimidated right now because we are 3/4 Italian at this table. You are the only one who isn't.
That is true.
Now don't take the Larson as the Italian side because it's not. The other side is.
Good add on there.
I'm just finally, I feel vindicated that it's the Chisholm, Hibbing, blue, whatever, because we got one of the blues on each side. So I finally feel vindicated. So yeah, we're gonna kick it around here today with Dante and Danny. And I guess we'll get it started out. Maybe Danny, we'll start with you. Just why don't you tell us a little bit about, your hockey career, how you got started, and just kind of go all the way. Well, not all the way, but I didn't go through high school.
How I got started was I used to be a defenseman. He used to be the goalie.
Are you serious?
Yes. When we were kids, Dante was a goalie. Well, he played first. I didn't play right away. I didn't play until I was about 6 or 7. And then somehow we just gradually switched. When I grew up, everyone, put on the pads. Everyone was going to play a game of goalie. And then I just kept doing it. I was the dumb one who kept doing it. So, and then, Chisholm was more of a basketball town. So by the time I got to high school, my 10th grade year after that, I transferred to Hibbing, and we went to state, and it was wonderful, and we played junior A.
I heard Jesse Vessel led you to state. Is there any?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Greatest goal scorer of all time. The greatest all-around player ever.
Best teammate ever, best
Oh,
player
by
ever.
far. Oh, yeah. No one's better than that guy, yeah.
He does have one of my favorite men's league moments of all time, but I don't know if it's appropriate.
Which one? We threw up?
He scored 3 goals in one shift, threw up, and left the ice.
I was there for that, yeah. Men's league's all about fun.
Yeah, right.
All right, Dante, why don't you give us your 1, 2, 3?
Oh yeah, I think my story is more about why I went to law school than how I played hockey. When you apply, I remember they ask you why you wanted to become a lawyer, and then you apply for jobs, and they ask you the same thing, and you're supposed to have this altruistic, grand reason, and what you realize later on in life is most people tell you it's supposed to be a good career, and you're probably good at school. And so after I didn't get my first 2 jobs that I applied for in law school, the interviewer, I could feel them seeing through me when I gave them my legal reason. And so I decided to tell the truth on my 3rd interview, and they said, "So why did you want to become a lawyer?" I said, "Well, the truth was I was a shitty college hockey player with a good GPA."
You're a rare find.
I will tell a note about being one of the final Blue Streaks. My only claim to trivia fame is the last Chisholm Blue Streak to play college hockey, but even though the career wasn't
I never even
impressive.
thought about that.
But when I got to junior, I remember almost every coach would say, "Dante, you got to move the puck faster. You got to move the puck faster," and I couldn't understand why. Because I like to carry it right? I like to carry the puck, and then I had to reset what was wrong with my mental clock as a defenseman. And I realized carrying the puck in Chisholm, sometimes I would skate up the ice and I'd go, well, if I pass it to him, he's not going to catch it. If I pass it to him, he might fall down. so there was always 3 or 4 more strides than I should have taken. I'm like, gosh,
Part of the reason I went to him.
And Danny was, Danny and I was fortunate enough to play with him a little bit in Chisholm because his first game was as an 8th grader against Mesabi East. He had 52 saves that
55.
game. 55.
Don't skim them with the extra 3. It's a goalie.
Yeah.
By the next year, he played his freshman year at Chisholm, and one of the funnest stories I have of playing high school with him, which is also a perfect example of how all goalies are crazy, we were up in Ely. We were up in Ely, and we were up 2-0, and Danny they couldn't score. He was hot as a pistol, and we were playing really well. We went into the 3rd period. And somebody dared say shutout in between periods.
But it
wasn't even that good of a goal. I was mad at myself.
And he let one in from almost the goal line. And
it was
a terrible goal.
It was.
And so we lined up for the face-off, and he's still hitting himself in the face over and over again with the paddle of the stick. To which I had to turn around and yell, "Danny, effing knock it off." And my aunt comes up to me after the game and she goes, "The whole rink heard you shout at him."
So what? That don't matter.
Was it in Ely or
It was in Ely.
Doesn't matter. The rink is small enough where everyone's going to hear it. And there's 10 people there and they're all parents.
And like this, I always tell people Ely and Chisholm had a great rivalry back then because we were both really good at baseball. We were both mediocre at hockey, both mediocre at football, and then we were both really shitty at hockey. So
it was competitive all the way around. Always competitive.
Well, that's one of the questions I want to ask you. You talked about junior. So you two are pretty rare finds in the fact that 2 Chisholm guys, let alone anybody on the range, you guys both played in the Saskatchewan Junior League. So I don't know which one of you want. Maybe Dante, start with you because you were obviously the first one there. But how did a Chisholm kid find his way to the Sask?
So I had an interesting career. Like I said, Chisholm was it was a tough program to grow up in. But I wanted to play, and I had a good work ethic. And so, we didn't really play anybody, and we did everything we could. And I ended up out in Bismarck, North Dakota at a camp. And the Notre Dame Hounds head coach was there. And he watched me play one day, and he said he liked it. And then the next day, he came up to me and said, I'd like to see you get a little meaner the next shift. And it isn't until looking back at it that I realized he just probably wanted a big American to throw punches by the time I got up there. But and so I did, and he offered me a camp. And when I got up there, we had a new coach from Norway who's you can expect his style of hockey was completely different.
Yes.
I did make the team. I signed my card. Ended up as a suitcase, and I was a little bit of an inconsistent player, but I never became a fighter. Fighters are a different breed, but when you're a 6'2" American in the Canadian League, you better learn how to fight
You're
at some
average,
point.
yeah.
So I had to a little bit. But like I said, I didn't have a great career up there. But when I got to Spalaska, Danny was coming up, and he was a really good goaltender. And my coach at the time was Corey Boris from St. Norbert's. And I said, Corey, my brother's a solid player. You got any connections up there? And Corey played at Yorkton. And so he made a call, and Danny made the team when he went up there.
That's what I was going to say. He helped me get up there.
So tell me about the story about you. You both played. You're 3 years apart in age.
Yep.
Well, 2 things have changed, but like
He's a year behind me in high school.
Yeah.
But
3 years in high school. Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm not that smart.
how did you two end up with the same roommate that far apart?
I don't know. He must.
Are they fudging birth certificates in Canada?
No,
Coach Larson?
He must have been playing.
He was
since
a young
he was
defenseman
15.
on my team. He was a really young defenseman on my team. And then, and so he was a couple years younger than me. He was about 3 years younger than me. And then by the time I was back stateside, Danny ended up playing with him in Yorkton.
He was a defenseman too.
Yeah.
We had a room together too. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna last question, kind of in your career, or for me, and then Coach Larson has anything. But one thing that I heard through my whole career is your grandfather Chet was known for being instrumental in getting the Chisholm rink built, which is of course his namesake, and the fairgrounds in Hibbing. What do you guys? Either of you know anything about that, or the process, or why it was so? I mean, obviously he loved hockey. That's one reason.
Well, he was also an engineer. And
okay.
he knew how to build things really well, and it was all volunteer work, and he loved doing that stuff. So, and he needed someone like him to.
The ball roll.
Yes, is basically the general.
Chet had a very interesting life. Chet was the first class of Navy SEALs.
In World War II.
In World War II, underwater demolition team.
Yeah,
3.
we weren't called Navy SEALs.
He was actually, see, it kind of gives you an outlook as to why Danny and I are the most disappointed Tomassonis.
Yeah, right.
Because
He way better than I am, though.
he was living in California working for Lockheed Martin during World War II, and so that made him exempt from the draft because he was working for a military supply company. And so he enlisted, and when we found out why he enlisted, it's because he couldn't handle being called a draft dodger. So the guy was brave from day one. He ends up on underwater demolition team 3. World War II is over. He goes to Michigan Tech to get an engineering degree. Fast forward, he's got this engineering degree. He's working at Hannah Mining Company. And my dad told this story at his funeral. He said the only time I ever heard my mother say the word divorce is when he was working on that rink, because he'd work a 7 to 3 shift at the mine, and then he worked from 3 to 10 at the rink every day. And he helped that, and then he helped take over the Fairgrounds project as well. And so both projects built with community volunteer labor. And there's some neat stories. Like one of my favorites is there's this 7-year-old couple that still work at the mine, and if they were missing a tool, they'd steal it for the rink project.
I think there was a lot of that going on back then.
It was much easier than to do that.
Back then. So, all right, awesome. All right, so we're going to move on here. Quick word from Aspire Heating and Control. Of course, you know them. They're a local Bryant dealer, and Bryant is the official heating and cooling company of your Minnesota Wild. Aspire specializes in gas, electric, and hydronic heating and cooling systems for new and existing construction. Residential and commercial installations available. Services include forced air systems, boilers, heat pumps, mini splits. They are, of course, licensed and bonded, so give Justin a call. He's a hockey guy. 218-999-5957. If you look at the forecast, it's going to get pretty hot this weekend. So if you need that AC tuned up, give Justin a call. 218-999-5957. All right, you want to start with Alan?
Yeah, you know what? There's nothing that screams Iron Range more than a fantastic Italian name.
I totally agree.
And of course, I grew up in Grand Rapids, and there'll be many that'll say, well, Grand Rapids isn't on the range.
I was just going to say,
if it's not, if it isn't, then I had parents that were both born and bred and raised on the Iron Range. My mom was a Virginia grad, class of 65. My dad was a Mountain Iron grad, class of 64. My mom's the Italian side of the family. So I grew up over here all the time. I'm over here in the summer. I'm over doing camps and skating in the summer in Virginia, even though I'm spending a lot of time in my hometown of Grand Rapids. So I'm very proud of being an Iron Ranger. And when I hear the name Tomassoni, I think of just some deep roots in the world of good Italian heritage. But I also think hockey comes to mind, right? But also government comes to mind too, right? It comes up. There's relationships that go back. My grandfather, Mondo De Juanes, was involved. Was a political guy as well too, and well, knew your father very well. So I just want a little bit of background on Dad and growing up, and then playing the playing history that he had, and maybe we'll start with you, Danny.
Well, in high school in Chisholm, which is another good statistic about Chisholm hockey, there were 7 Chisholm hockey players that played Division I hockey, 0 for basketball, which is weird.
That is kind of weird.
Yeah, because it's a basketball team.
Yeah.
So when my dad went to Denver, was a great defenseman. And then after that, he tried out for the New York Rangers. He kind of made the team, but he played, they sent him down to the minors. But the European League was better financially. Because in the minors in the U.S., you only got paid for when the games you played. So if you're a healthy scratch, you don't get paid.
Oh.
And
who cares about practice all week?
Yeah, right.
Talk about practice.
Yeah.
Great point.
But I mean, in 82 World Championships, the Italy versus Canada, he knocked Gretzky on his butt, which is nice.
I like it.
And I have that picture. Well, we all do. But I've been lucky.
That was hanging in his office.
I'm lucky enough to have that picture. It says the great one in Gretzky. But then in '84, he played the Olympics in Sarajevo, and he scored against the day I was born. He scored against Russia the day I was born.
Really?
Yeah. So
It's a great story. In fact, ABC News called it 2/3 of a hat trick.
Yep.
Because he scored Italy's only goal. Danny was born an hour before the game. So. Great. Yeah, he captain at Denver, 75. I believe he played in 2 national championships for Denver. And
freshman, sophomore year.
Yeah, 16 years of pro in Italy. Small stint with the Rangers. He had a fun story he'd like to tell. He made it through camp with New York and was sitting next to Espo in the locker room. And Espo sits down first day of the regular season, and he said, "For any of you that are late, it's a $10 fine to practice." And Dad told me, he goes, I leaned into Espo and I said, "What if I don't have a contract yet?" And apparently Espo said, "You don't have a contract? What the hell are you doing here?" So the story he tells us is he had these terrible Titan sticks, the red Titans, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Gretzky stick.
Yeah.
The white one with the red.
I have it. It's got the ugliest curve I've ever seen. He said he couldn't handle the puck with it, and they sent him down to the minors, and he played a few games in the A, and then decided he liked Italy better, and he spent most of his career there. Yeah.
So what did he ever say about growing up in Chisholm? Obviously, he played outdoors because that rink was built after him, right?
It was. They were the first team to play in it.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, they were the first team to play in it.
So what year?
I think they finished it. I want to say 68, 69.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how old that barn is now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of my favorite things is when you used to tell me.
And by the way,
Sorry, go ahead.
David Tomassoni, who I don't think we actually officially Senator David Tomassoni is their father. So I just want to get that out there.
Okay. When he told me, when he was a kid, they used to wear, them big Christmas magazines for shin pads.
Oh yeah.
And I can imagine trying to keep those things on your legs.
Duct tape.
Yeah.
Anything, even hockey, laces, whatever you use. But he said the first time he ever got actual shin pads, he fell down and it didn't hurt and he couldn't believe it, so he got up and fell down on purpose again to make sure it was true.
To make sure his legs didn't go down.
Oh,
That's how
gosh.
long he played, yeah.
Good stuff.
That's good. All right, so you talk. Let's get into the. There's got to be more to the Gretzky story than just he's had to just. He had to told that story a million times.
He was also a photographer. My dad was also kind of a photographer. He had a million pictures, and he always had the nicest camera around of any group or whatever he was. And then there was another guy on his team who was a healthy scratch. and he gave him the camera. And he said, if I'm anywhere near 99, you take a picture. And he got this amazing action shot. Not just that.
And what game is this? Is the what?
82 World Championships.
World Champ. Okay,
Italy
World.
versus
Like the Canadian Cup, or was it actual World
It
Championship?
was the World Championship.
Italy versus Canada. And there's a bunch of other pictures of him, you know, like in between whistles, or just, you know, how it is, he's skating around. But the action shot of him checking him was pretty amazing.
You can see 99 in Gretzky and my dad's face and the famous mustache right above his shoulder.
You couldn't see his face clearly, but you could see the
one.
mustache.
Yeah, the story goes he knew he was going to be paired up against Gretzky's line because he was one of Italy's top pairings, and he said I would watch Gretzky come into the zone and he would break off and do these circles.
Yeah, he used to spin.
And I wondered why doesn't somebody just hit him? He said, so Gretzky came down on me one-on-one. He broke off to the circle. I went up and hit him. and it wasn't like a massive collision. He doesn't tell the story like he killed him or anything. He says, in the picture, we're both falling down, but the puck is gone. That's what he
That's because Marty McSorley wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough to play on the Canadian World Championship team, so he didn't have his protection.
Right?
All right. So speaking of Italy, so you guys. So for those that don't know, these two were my neighbors. Well, Danny doesn't remember. Danny was about this tall, and now he's bigger than me. But they lived across the street in Chisholm. And so you guys spent time in Italy. We went to Italian school, so I don't know who wants to start, but what do you remember, and you got any stories from your time in Italy as kids?
Yeah.
And did you play hockey when you were there?
So we did.
He did a little bit.
I did a little bit. And so the reason Danny's 3 years behind me in school is my dad was worried that he was falling behind in English. And so it kind of held him back 1 year stateside here. But
anybody else watches going to
yeah, when we went, we go to Italian speaking school. Our last year, so we spend about 7 months out of the year in Italy, and we weren't really old enough to appreciate it, I don't think. But we kind of do now, looking back at it. And you know, if you ask us if we can speak fluent Italian, the answer is no. But my dad told us that he would come see us in school, and the teacher would go tell us to do something in Italian, and we'd just go do it.
But didn't you go to an American school?
My last year, I went to an American speaking school. It was an English speaking school. This is actually kind of neat. And so I know my dad must have negotiated this as part of his contract, because we were in Milan, and there's no way we could have afforded this place. Because in my memory, I can see Lamborghinis and Ferraris pulling up to high school.
I never saw that.
And we took a charter bus to school daily, right? And we had armed guards at the gates with machine guns hanging off. So I don't know who was there. Like the Louis Vuitton CEO or what? I don't know who was there, but there were some significant people there, and here was, you know, my dad making $70,000 a year as a hockey player. Somehow he got us in there. But my two best friends were from New York and Chicago, and so, you know, there's some cool experiences. You know, we got to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa on an off weekend, and we got to eat some pretty good food, and we got to learn some goofy languages, you know, some goofy sayings. And apparently my first Italian word was avanti. I don't know why, but it was. And so, but yeah, it was a pretty neat experience. But for the most part, we were pretty young. It was, but it's nice to go back if we can. That's for sure.
Well, it's a good thing it wasn't Fangul.
Well, you've got a story. Danny said he's got a story.
There's a story about that.
Because when we were kids, we always hang out. I forget, was it Milan?
It was in Milan, yeah.
Okay. And Dante says to me, he said, if I'm Fangul to that girl, I said, what does that mean? Just say it.
And no, let me lead up a little bit. This girl is 4 times the size we are.
Right?
Oh boy.
Like
So
she
he
will
tells
kill
me-
us.
She's way bigger than both of us. So I say it to her, and the look on her face was just pure anger, like, I'm going to rip your head off.
Yeah.
And you're about how old?
I think he was
5,
yeah,
6.
He might have been 3 or 4 for all we know.
I don't know. Old enough to run, thank God.
Well, so the viewers know that isn't something it's not a word we're going to throw out on this podcast here, but it's one that if you say this to a nice young lady, you're going to get backhanded, especially.
No, she was going to kill me. So then I just started running. We started running, just sprinting as much. I was terrified. So, and the elevators then were old, so it was like the cage.
Yeah, the comes together?
Yeah.
The accordion?
But it didn't come together, it was just on one side. But
Oh.
It was like a horror movie where the killer's coming up to you and the door shuts and her face is right there at the very end and the door shut. I'm like, oh my god! And then I said to him, what does it mean? F you. And I'm like, why did you tell me to say that? Hey, I don't even remember what you said, but
Just to see if you'd do it.
yeah.
Yep, that's what. Yep.
She would have killed me.
Oh, God. Oh, you want to ask?
Yeah, so let's just kind of make a little transition into kind of, the political life, life as a senator, civilian life for Dad.
It's hard to go out in public at dinner. Because everyone will be talking politics with him and you always have dinner with your dad.
So his transition, the way he described it to me was, now he's done playing. He played 16 years after college. I think he retired at about 37. And he's like, Dante,
Did he? Chose to, or did his body give out, or did he have any? I don't think he really had any injuries, right?
So
Nothing major.
no, but he retired 1 year, and then
They asked him to come
they
back.
asked him to come back. And what's interesting, Lou Vero, who was a prominent member at USA Hockey for a long time. If you have any USA Hockey fans, they'll know the name Lou Vero. Was his coach at the time. He tells this great story where he came back for the playoffs. He said, but I need some time to get in shape. And so he had kind of retired, and I remember him hanging around more that year. And he said, I landed in the plane, I walked into the locker room, I had my bag on my back, and the team had just finished losing a game where they should have closed out an easy series. And Lou was screaming at them. I heard every other word was an F word. And Lou got done yelling at the team, and he turned around to me and he goes, and you're playing tomorrow night. so he had one of those, but I think he realized he was getting older and he was done. Because when he was done playing, he had a piece with the game. He always loved it, but you could tell he had given everything to it.
Yeah, sure.
And so he had to find a real job. And he that's how he says it. So he started in with MetLife. He sold Kirby vacuums
First
for
it
a
was
year.
Kirby vacuum cleaners.
I
Door
remember
to
that.
door.
I remember those.
Door to door selling Kirby vacuum cleaners and then MetLife.
Yep, he ran for county commissioner, lost.
Okay,
That's
see
the
that?
only election he ever lost.
Okay, see, I was a young kid and I thought I remember signs all around Chisholm saying Tomassoni for county commissioner. So, okay, I'm vindicated again.
Yeah.
Lost that one, and then he ran for state representative, I think, a year or two later.
And this would have been late 80s, right?
Early 90s.
Or early 90s at this point?
Early 90s, yep. And then,
I suppose ladies, yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think. I was in 5th grade when he won his first election. I graduated high school in 2000. I don't know.
Maybe it was around when Clinton got elected, 92-ish.
And so, then he spent 8 years in the House and another 22 years in the Senate.
Wow. Okay.
That's a heck of a career.
That's
in politics. And,
Right.
Go ahead and get into the next question here, Puka.
Okay. Well, I might as well sneak this in real quick before. So, like I said, we are here at the gorgeous Spring Sports Bar and Grill. We've always told you hockey-themed establishment, and we already established that the beers are tall and the beers are cold. I just want to go over some of the specials. So here's what's going on here for the summer. Monday night, burger night, $6.50. Tuesdays, Taco Tuesday like everyone. $1.50 tacos. In this time of inflation, everybody's trying to save a buck. $1.50 tacos. Even I can afford that for my family of 6. Wednesdays, Wing Wednesdays, $8.99 wings. Of course, the Friday Fish Fry, we promoted that forever, right? And then the best fish fry in the Quad Cities, right here at the Ring Sports Bar and Grill. And then Saturdays, for just $28.99, King Cut Prime Rib, right here at the Ring Sports and Grill. We're just down from the Hockey Hall of Fame. Highway 53 is right out to our right, to your left. So come pay a visit at Ring Sports Bar and Grill. Tell them thank you for supporting the Tea with Ms McGill show, and ask for Michelle, and she will take very good care of you.
So what you're saying, it's his Wingy Wednesday, right?
Wingy Wednesday, and we should have.
Tell me
Well, I
that-
guess we're sticking around, boys.
Tell me I'm not gonna get wings. If you tell me I'm not, we're fighting.
Yeah, we're sticking around. So, all right. So he gets elected. So what? I don't know, Dante, if you want to take this. It's kind of his career as a senator. political philosophy, some of the obviously we're not a political show, but we got to kind of get into this because we really want to highlight, your father today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it's, and if, Danny and I's pride of our dad that doesn't show on our sleeve. You'll see it, you'll hear it in the stories, and I mean, we're very proud of him. The interesting thing, and we'll talk a little bit about his battle with ALS that Danny and I got to experience, was hearing everyone talk about who he was as a person and as a legislator when he went through his struggle. And what we learned about his career, and I got to lobby for 2 years at the Capitol, so I got to actually see him in action and be a part of it, is what was unique about his philosophy, and I think pure about his philosophy as a politician. So many politicians leave sour taste in people's mouths. Was he cared about the people he represented first and foremost. Like, his passion for taking care of people in his district was second to none. And he didn't care how he did it. He didn't care if he got votes from Republicans, votes from Democrats. He didn't care who he made friends with. His philosophy was, it was very attuned to the Iron Range in the sense that keep people working. And I'll do whatever I have to do to keep people working.
Fund education infrastructure.
If I have to fund infrastructure, if I have to fund education, if I have to work with businesses to get them tax breaks, if I have to, we have a lot of hunters, so he didn't walk party lines. He was a Democrat for years, but he didn't walk party lines. I've heard stories of him being in the Democratic caucus going, listen, that's not going to work for my constituents. It will not work, and I will not vote for it because I have to protect my constituents first. And he did that, and he did it in a way that, what was interesting about his battle with ALS is that senators would come up to us and say, he could be a terrifying SOB, but when we got done, he would come up to us and he would offer me a dinner, he'd take me out to dinner or a drink, make sure we're okay, because he knew it was professional, and he knew it was cordial. So many stories of him just battling with people, with other legislators, in which he got done, he go, we're still good, right? and so he was loved by both sides of the aisle, and his list of accomplishments is so significant. I mean, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars brought back to the Iron Range. Yeah. He defended the USA Hockey Hall of Fame here, made sure it's still here. And I mean, the amount of infrastructure and bills and the people that he brought forward.
For the state, and he helped get the Amsoil Arena. He helped for the Vikings too.
Talk a little bit more about that, because I don't think it's any secret. Like Puka said, we're not a political show here, so we're not going to try to flip a side. But but what I will emphasize right now is your dad was the perfect example of what we're missing in politics right now. Everything on the left is so far to the left, and everything on the right is so far to the right, and there's not enough politicians that settle in the middle and work for both sides of the aisle. And that's something that your dad was really good at, was bringing Republicans to the Democratic side and convincing Democrats to work with Republicans. Talk a little bit more about that, because that is what we're missing in this world right now.
It's about logic. It's about, really, it's about understanding other people and about realizing forget about this crazy nonsense.
So
real issues.
I had the fortunate option of hearing this great story. And so at the end of every legislative session, the Senate bills have to match the House bills identically, otherwise they don't go to the governor, right? And so the Senate passes their bills, the House passes their bills, and what they do is they go into conference committee. And Dad was a chairman of the committee for a really long time. He was always a chairman because they were the party in power. And so the great story I heard was from a representative on the House side who was running that conference committee. My dad was running this conference committee, and he told me, I remember, your dad was a feared negotiator. And he said, so I walked into him prepared. I had a bullet list of everything that I was going to get out of this bill. It was going to come to me. And at the time, and so this is a Republican legislator, by the way. The Republican Party had the House, Democrats had the Senate. And he said, I was going to come in there and I was going to show him. I was going to show him I wasn't afraid of him. I handed him my list. He grabbed the list, crumpled it up, threw it in the garbage. And then I looked at him, I said, so what do you want? He said, I want everything I want, and I want everything you want. And that's how they got the bill done. And so that's so rare these days, where it has to be, he knew getting things done benefited the people of his district and benefited the people of the state. And gridlock was, frankly, dumb.
And he always, one thing I want to add is he always on his list of things to get done, everything was labeled number 1. All of his items.
Oh, really?
They would ask for his
Everything on the
priorities.
agenda was number one?
Yes, because everything was equally important as the next thing.
That's
funny.
That's missing right now.
Everything he said, because people would ask him, well, what's priority?
Leadership would ask for
It's
a
all
list of
priority.
priorities.
Everything would be labeled number 1.
Leadership would ask for his official list of priorities, and he'd ask him to enumerate them. The first time he did, he put a 1 by every one of them.
That's awesome.
Well, so I guess just backing up just a little bit, what was it like when, January to about May, about late or Memorial Day every year? Bonding bills are every other year, but what was it like? He was gone all week, basically, right? What was that like? Or did you just kind of get used to it and not thought this is just the way life is?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, I said this at his funeral. He felt some guilt about being gone. I know he never missed a game my senior year. He'd drive up from the cities on a Tuesday if we had a Tuesday game, and drive right back down Wednesday morning, and he wouldn't miss a lick of session. But I remember, he felt a lot of guilt about that, but he'd leave, Sunday, depending on when session started, depending on how heated in the time of year it was, he'd typically leave either Sunday night or Monday morning. He'd come back on a Thursday, because they'd be done on Thursday and they wouldn't be in session on Friday, with the exception of the last couple weeks of session. And you're so busy going to sports, studying, and I tell him, Dad, we barely noticed you were gone.
Girlfriends, come on, girlfriends.
No girlfriends, chasing girls, yes.
You learned that in Italy.
Yeah.
You learned that in Italy.
Yeah. Even the Italians are a different breed.
All right, we'll get into the battle of ALS just in a second here, but real quick word from Iron Range Apparel. Of course, Coach Larson with his ODR hat. We always call it the Gift Buyer's Paradise. I happened to stop by the Gift Buyer's Paradise while I was over in the Quad Cities today, but I tell you that they got a little bit of stuff for everyone. I told you a little bit about the signs, so here's a little bit of the signs. I teach what's your superpower. I think you know who this is going to. But like I said, Gift Buyer's Paradise. You're looking for a 6-year-old, you're looking for a 66-year-old, you're looking for grandma, you're looking for grandson. They get a little bit of everything. Now remember, the new location, they are no longer in the Thunderbird Mall. They are actually right up Highway 53 in the Super One grocery store there. There used to be a bank there, so there's little side shops. So like I said, you're looking for that perfect gift for somebody. Iron Range Apparel in Virginia. So if you're in the Quad City or anywhere across the range, that's the place to check out. All right. You want to get into this one a little bit?
Yeah, this is personal for me too. Obviously for you guys, I had an aunt a few years back deal with ALS, so this runs in the family for me, and some of the struggles I can see that you guys probably dealt with as well. But let's talk about the battle with ALS. How his career life kind of made his battle with ALS unique. There's some real nice little bullet points that I think you guys are going to touch on here. But talk about that, because the type of person he was. Get into that and how that fight, what type of person he was and how that fight was kind of typical of how he went about things.
He never stopped, which was amazing. He never stopped working. He never stopped thinking about other people while he was dying, which is above and beyond. Because even 2 days before he died, he was on an environmental conference committee meeting via Zoom. Still doing his job.
He was sorry, Dan.
But that's just something that you can't teach something like that.
That comes from within. That's a
Right.
personality trait that that you deal with. Like his
He was
mentality
real-
was
he
to
was-
fight,
Right.
right?
And I don't want anyone feeling bad for me.
No.
But that's impossible. But he was still working till literally the day he died. And I always said that. People ask me, if your dad's going to retire, I said, no, he'll be in office till he dies. I always said that, because that's just how he was.
He actually used to joke that he wanted to catch per diem the day he died.
Yeah.
He expected it to be at 92,
Right. He was still going to be.
No, I think it's I always say this, there's a humbleness to us on the range that you don't want to sound too much like a braggart, but there's, like I said, I don't hide my pride about my father and how I looked at him. And when he got ALS, he somehow managed to keep his sense of humor. And one of the things about him as a legislator is those friendships and those relationships that he had built and that credibility he built over the years. It all kind of led to this interesting moment, and I'll never forget it. When I lobbied at the Capitol for 2 years, and there's this weird moment in my brain that's like, we all have these memories that are kind of seared in your brain. And this is before he got sick. This is well before he got sick. We were sitting at the St. Paul Grill one night, and I can't see the person who asked this question, but she said, for some reason led with me. She said, Dante, what do you want to be remembered for when you die? And I was, 36 years old, was like, I'm gonna be dead, who cares? And that was kind of my answer. Also, I didn't really like the morbid topic. And my dad actually kind of paused. Now in his early 60s, there's probably something going through his brain as I look back to it. And he just said, I want to be remembered for helping as many people as I could while I was here. And that was his answer, and I never forgot it. That's a 100% true story. I haven't changed that for his sickness, anything. And so when he got sick, Tom Bach tells this story. He got diagnosed, and Tom heard about it. He walks in his office, and his dad said to me, Tom, I'm not scared of dying. I'm scared of what I have to go through to get there. And so ALS is this, it's this miserable effing disease. And if there's ever an appropriate sentence for the F word, that was it. And so you slowly get paralyzed, and some people think, well, you still have your brain. Well, it's almost like being trapped in a prison. I would have given him dementia over ALS any day. And
that's always been the argument.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but when he said, I'd rather have cancer.
Yeah. And so
think about that comment.
Yeah, can you explain for our audience, because we have a lot of high school kids that can you break down ALS? I mean, you basically
sure.
did,
Yeah, I try not to do it. In Danny's comment to the cancer, real quick, is like, you think somebody has cancer, they can still read the newspaper, they can still call their loved ones, they can still manage their phone.
They have a chance.
What happens with ALS is you become slowly paralyzed, and so
it starts in your fingers.
It usually starts in your fingers and your hands and your
Right,
limbs.
yeah.
The interesting,
different, but yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and it affects everybody differently. The interesting thing about being a hockey player is his legs were so strong that his legs were the last to go.
His feet a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and so that they kept him up, but the way he approached it, he kept his sense of humor. He as much as he could, he was as brave as he could be, and the only thing he focused on was helping other people.
Which was
so,
amazing, yeah.
Like Danny said, he was in hospice, managing a computer with his eyes because nothing worked, and this thing could track your eyes and you could type and you could use your voice. My aunt, his wife, or my wife, his wife, my aunt would go there, and he would tell them how to vote, and then they would take his phone and text him his votes.
We were working with him all the time. Like, we were voting for him. Everyone took turns to vote on the Senate floor on his phone at the hospice.
So he literally had a bill passed while he was in hospice.
Yeah.
Working.
And we brought him down to
when he couldn't move
the Capitol and in the governor's office, and when they signed the bill.
We don't have enough politicians.
Right. No. I don't have that many that tough. I'll tell you that.
Well, and it's historic legislation. No state in the history of the United States has passed with that much money for ALS.
But also that fast.
Yes, and what I should note is that the way he approached it, he would say nothing has really happened in the battle against ALS since Lou Gehrig was diagnosed, right? And so it's very difficult to manage the disease because so many people are diagnosed every year, but then so many people die off real fast. So you're not like there's 30,000 people suffering with ALS all the time. It's a lower number, but then also the test subjects die so quickly, so it's hard to find a cure. And so my dad simply said, listen, I want to find a cure so nobody else has to suffer. So the bill is $20 million to cure ALS. And what's interesting about his career, and I think somewhat fortuitous, is that the University of Minnesota and the Mayo are two of the best hospitals in the world, right? They're here in Minnesota. And then we end up with this senator who is loved by both sides of the aisle that puts forth this bill, $20 million for the cure, $5 million for caregivers. And I just never forget, I was on the Senate floor, or I was not on the Senate floor, I was in the Senate chambers watching when every single senator hit green on their voting button that day. Both sides of the aisle hit green. Now, there were 8 members of the House who were, whose names should, not be remembered.
What do you say?
Almost every member of the House of Representatives voted for that.
I don't know how you say no.
Right? I know.
How do you?
And it's kind of a testament to his career, those relationships that he built, that toughness that hockey built in him. Like, I'm going to fight this thing. I'm going to find a way to kill it on my way out, knowing it would never benefit him. He knew it would never benefit him. And he could have quit. He could have said, kill me. He could have done all sorts of things. And he never did. He worked every day. We were driving him down for the bill signing, and we were in session on his phone. This is interesting about COVID. It allowed us to do this. Otherwise, COVID wouldn't allow us to do this too.
Right.
So this is another one of these weird fortuitous things. But I'm driving his car. Danny's wife has his phone. He's in the front seat, and we go, and then we go, Dave, how do you want to vote on this bill? And he go, yes, because he couldn't speak very well.
Yeah, he knew what he was mumbling.
Yeah, and then Anna would unmute it and go, Tomassoni votes yes.
And I just wanted to side note, I'm sorry that your aunt had it, because I can imagine how much harder it was for her with not having as much technology. Because I don't know if she had an eye gaze machine.
Yeah, a little bit earlier time frame. So we're talking back into the, closer to 2012, 2013, and like we kind of alluded to, that this is it's a disease when diagnosed, you really don't know how it's going to take each individual
How
person.
fast it's going to go too, yeah.
Anywhere from a year to 3 years, and hers started where her legs started going down first. So it started with her legs and kind of ended, with the upper part of the body. And but it's interesting how the strength that he had as an athlete, his legs were the last to go for him too. So it's interesting. I appreciate that.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I feel like everything went at the same time almost. I mean, it happened so fast, but yeah. But I mean, because I've talked to so many people that their family members have had it. So many. I know someone that's related to my wife. Their family members they've had 4 or 5 people that had it, and they probably didn't have any help, or any type of communication with them. We were lucky that Ken Herbeck was a big part of this too, that he was big in getting that eye gaze machine going.
So I'll tell you, I'd say go back to kind of a fun story. So mid-season 2022, mid-college hockey season 2022, Denver's playing University of Minnesota, Duluth. So the Bulldogs and the Pioneers are playing in Duluth. And Sandlin, who's a friend of Dad, and Dad who helped pass legislation to create the Amsoil ring, right? And so at this point, he can still walk. He can't use his hands very well. He's having trouble keeping his head up.
He can still kind of talk too, yeah.
But he can still kind of talk. And so the Pios had him for the morning skate, and they reprinted his jersey. They put his C on it at the morning skate. And they weren't. I said, "Is he going to say something?" I said, "I don't know. He can't really talk that well, but he can still kind of speak. So I'll let him figure it out at the moment." So all the Pios are down on one knee. We're at Amsoil, and he walks up to the bench, and he'd always had his hands folded at that time because he couldn't really use them. And he's going to talk. I was surprised. So he coughs and he goes, "I just have one thing to say. When you get to the national championship," he coughs, struggles a little bit, "win the fucking thing." So as a thank you to Coach Carl for doing this nice thing for my father, I printed that picture in a nice frame, and I put the caption, "When you get to the national championship, win the effing thing." And I actually put the asterisk in it so it was appropriate, and I sent it to him after they won the Frozen Four game in that year. Coach Carl sent me a text message, and he said, "We brought something with us to Boston," and it was the picture in his hotel room, but they hadn't wrapped it yet because they hadn't won the game yet. And so they brought it to the team breakfast, And now that photo hangs in the DU locker room.
And we want it again.
And so they want it again. So that thing is still hanging in the DU locker room, and it's a pretty interesting. It's kind of like this, that's kind of who he was. Like, it was, he sat there and he had a chance to say something, and he just go win the effing thing, and so yeah. But that's how he handled it, and the fact that somehow COVID allowed him to vote, remotely. How his relationships in his career. I mean, so many people said one senator alive could have got that done, and it's pretty neat. I mean, it's a pretty neat testament to who he was as a person, as a legislator, as a hockey player, as a fighter, and as a kind person at the same time. And it's pretty neat.
Well, just one thing for the audience. So I'm gonna back up just a tiny bit. How did he get diagnosed, or what was going on where he said, I gotta
go in?
Yeah, go in.
It was when he was in the office when he first started. This first started when he was at work at the Capitol, and he was just holding on to a pen and he just dropped it, not like a normal. Sometimes we all drop stuff, but he couldn't squeeze. He couldn't hold on to it, and then he started noticing. He just started getting weaker. He couldn't do normal things. He could still walk and talk, but simple things that he couldn't hold on to, and he started realizing the one kind of humorous when he's watching a chick flick with someone, I don't know, and he's crying in a chick flick. I'm not supposed to cry in this. Why the hell am I crying during this stupid movie? Basically.
I noticed his hand strength was leaving him, and he sent me some research and some information. We were hoping it was a different neural disease, something that was similar treatment, and so I started Googling, and I'm self-aware that Googling is a dangerous place to go down. But I called him one day and I said, Dad, everything I'm seeing with you, I said, I have one question. I said, are you getting emotional? He said, I was watching The Wild the other day and a commercial came on and I bawled my eyes out.
Never seen a guy cry in my life.
And I said, Dad, there's a good chance this is Lou Gehrig's disease and you might want to prepare yourself for it. And there's another kind of sense of humor thing. When he called me to tell me, he said, well, Dante, you should have been a doctor. It's like one of those miserable moments in your life, but and
something you didn't want to be right about.
and you'll like this one. Like I said, in testament to his personality. One of the last movies we watched together was Top Gun.
Ooh,
Maverick.
He's the Iceman.
And so what we would do is so he had enough strength in his legs where I could pick him up out of his wheelchair and he could shuffle into my car. I could take the weight off of his legs, but he could just kind of steer them. I put him into the car, we put his wheelchair in the back, Danny would help, and then, so he was talking with a computer at the time, so his eyes would track, he would type, and he'd say something. So we'd bring him to the movie theater, we'd take the computer off so he could watch the movie, and then we put the computer back on, and this is Maverick, and remember the movie Maverick, Iceman is talking with the computer.
Yeah.
Throat cancer or whatever it is. And we put the computer back on his thing, get him ready to go. We're expecting him to say something he needs, like move his hands, help him. His first thing he types up, he goes, "Call me Iceman."
All right.
That was the last movie we saw together.
Yeah. So to kind of close out the political career, his last Iron Ranger party at the Capitol.
You want this one, Dan, or
his?
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
Okay. Yes, you were. You were. So this was the big one at the. This was the big one.
At the Carpenters Union.
Yeah, this is one of the Carpenters. So every year during my dad's career, they would hold an Iron Ranger, or every other year they'd hold an Iron Ranger party at Mancini's. Very popular moment where both parties would come, staff would come, everybody's invited, brought everybody together. During his last one, they decided to make it in honor of him, and they held it at the Carpenters Union instead of Mancini's because they knew too many people would attend.
And there was not enough room.
Typical attendance was, I think, 100 people-ish, 130 people-ish, maybe 150. This one had 600 people attended, and they donated all the money to ALS. The governor came. They did speeches. They did some work. And it was a pretty spectacular, pretty special moment. Second to watching all the green lights go up on that Senate bill when they voted for it, I think that was one of the top ones of his career.
Well, that kind of led to a few things then. From what I'm hearing, it kind of led to not only the battle that he had and the type of personality that he had, where it was fight, 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 it kind of led to some fundraising things that popped up.
It got things pushing forward, yes.
What did it lead to?
More fund, like you said, more fundraising, more awareness. Usually, and I'm not trying to degrade anyone else, but like the person that no one knows who got it, what would have happened? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But someone who, in his position and when things how he cared about other people and when he raised awareness himself, it catapulted a lot of things as far as people being aware of it and are understanding it and fundraising for it.
So we hooked up with a group called Never Surrender Inc. They do the Blizzard Tour, and
that led us to that, yeah.
Yep, and David Colquist, his brother died of ALS, and he made him a promise to always fight ALS, and so it's become kind of this great ALS group, and they really helped us along the way. But when my dad, he would have a couple major fundraisers a year. One of them was a golf event, and it usually backed into Tom Bach's Fortune Bay golf event, and it was this great meeting of business and politics from both sides. And you got to be there, and you got to be a part of state leadership, you got to be a part of business, you got to be a part of community. And so during one of my dad's last years, they had the Tomassoni golf event, he called it.
Tomassoni.
So we took the Iron Range location, put it to Fortune Bay. We made these shirts, which are like golf shirts, replicas of his Italia jersey. And we had it there for the first year. And so August 7th, we're having our second annual. My dad made me promise that I do one of his fundraisers every year to support ALS. Last year we raised about $35,000 for the cause of this golf event. We had a great attendance. The Speaker of the House was there, many politicians. The unions that my dad supported for years, they've been wonderful. They're coming again this year in full support. We have 102 teams signed up this year. I think we have room for 3 more teams. And it's at wonderful Fortune Bay, which is why I'm wearing my Wilderness hat, and it's one of your sponsors. They are generous about the way they take care of us. They are so great at organizing the event. We purposely don't double up the teams on the par 3 so it doesn't get too slow.
Right.
And at the end of the day, and if anybody's listening, for those of you that aren't golfers, we have a walleye dinner that you can contribute to the cause. It's right down by the lake in a tent after the golf event, August 7th again, right around 5 p.m. We get a band that donates their time. And we do, I think we spend, 6 minutes doing speeches?
Yeah.
The rest of the time we do silent auction items, and we give out awards. We got some cool silent auction. The Wild kicked in this year. They got a team signed jersey. Unreal Athletics, they're doing a lot of custom Viking stuff. They kicked in some things. We got tickets to Twins games, and so it's become a nice event. And we hope the sky's the limit, because getting together for a good cause like that and supporting the fight and supporting the families that have to deal with this stuff, because having gone through it, it's awful, and if we can help anyone with it.
Well, it's if you didn't hear enough reasons, it sounds to me like there's a few slots open to get into that. You've got the Wilderness Golf Course, which is one of the best in on all of Minnesota, but especially northern Minnesota.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It sounds like great food. It sounds like great company, and if those aren't good enough for you, then the cause is even better.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're going to want to share this one. A great cause, great guys, for a great man. I guess there's really not much more to say. Like I said, great go. What's your best round up there?
Oh, I know, probably like 120.
110? 110?
I'm like every other hockey player.
You know what?
I hit it a long
I
way,
only
but it
played
goes in the woods at some point.
I only played Scrabble, so it's never my
Well,
score.
I'll tend to count how many balls I lost when I go there versus
That's
my
basically
score.
it. How many times? Yeah.
But I have gotten into the 80s. I haven't broke into the 70s at the
Hey, that's
Wilderness,
really
but
good,
being
though.
in the 80s
Hey, that's really
at
good,
that
though.
That's
course
a
was
solid
like,
score, yeah.
hey, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, anything else?
No, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, no, it's
Thank you.
awesome. So like you said, we've been pumping the tires of the golf course, the Wilderness up there. So like you said, 3 teams left. Get your, 3 or 4 teams? Or
They're
person?
four-person
They're
teams, 250 a golfer, and then a big part of that, part of that goes to your green fees, your meal, pays for your lunch. and then the rest goes to ALS.
And then real quick, the Blizzard Tour is the snowmobile.
It is, and then actually we should plug the Tomassoni bike tour as well.
Yeah.
So all of the money, the golf tournament just goes, it kind of gets moved into the pot for the Tomassoni bike tour. So so while Dad was sick, Todd Lauer had a great idea up here. He was suffering from ALS as well, and he said, David got that whole trail paid for up here for the Mesabi Trail. So not everybody owns the snowmobile. I mean, they're $20 grand, right, for new, and he said, why don't we do a bike tour in the fall? And Never Surrender ran with that. So now they have a fishing tournament, they have the Blizzard Tour, and now they have the Tomassoni Bike Tour, and this will be the second annual year for the Tomassoni Tour. It starts in Fortune Bay as well. They're such a big supporter, and you can ride a half, which is 50 miles, which is 25 miles a day. A full, which is 50 miles a day. You can do an e-bike, so it's a little bit for everybody. And the coolest thing about it, Ken Herbeck, let's just say, love Ken to death. He's not in playing shape anymore.
No, I know Ken's,
And
hope you're not watching.
Hope you're not watching. And he was like,
it's not 1987.
He said I'm going to come up and support, but I'm not getting on a bike. And Ski Hut got him on an e-bike. He rode a half one day. Bought 2 e-bikes, one for him and his girlfriend.
I'll tell you what, Ken, if you're watching,
now.
if Ken Herbeck is watching right now, I will donate my Harley for the day.
Oh, yeah. Don't let anybody over, though.
I want it back, though, with no scratches.
Terry Steinbach will be there as well.
And last year, also, Ron Gardner was there as well.
Gardy was there, and we also had. This is where we need to do cut. So I should know the name.
It'll come to you.
It'll come
You
to
just
me.
cut me
Yeah,
off with
yeah, it'll come to me, yeah.
as I'm closing on here. So, all right, Danny Tomassoni, Dante Tomassoni, thank you so much for joining us. And wrap it up here. Please comment. Like I said, share this one. This is a great one to share, especially if you're a Chisholm hockey person. You get a lot of history. This is great. Contact us privately, Goatsportsmediallc at gmail.com. Find us, of course, on X T McGill, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Musi app. Find us under T with Ms McGill. And if you're looking for us on Facebook or YouTube, it's Goat Sports Media LLC. Leave us a review when you're there. Merch, of course, we got the T-shirts. Coach Larson's got one. I've got one. We'll take care of it. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. We can ship it, whatever you need to do. And as always, thanks to the greatest partners on earth, the Ring Sports Bar and Grill. Thank you again for hosting us. Iron Range Apparel, Fortune Bay Resort Casino, Aspire Heating and Control, Iron Range Goalie Academy in Grand Rapids, Chevrolet GMC. So with that, I am Puka. This is Coach Reed Larson. Get out there and be your dream. You're tuned to. Oh, you got something?
Chisholm is the center of the universe.
To the city of the universe. Get out there.
Center of the universe.
I was going to roll there and say, and don't forget, there hasn't been a person ever that didn't like Ms McGill.
That is true. That's what we will. So, get out there, kids, and be your dream.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you liked the show, please leave a review and subscribe. We would appreciate that. It is Puka, another show from Goat Sports Media that we'd like to tell you about. If you're into dirt track racing, it is that time of year. The One to Go show covers dirt track racing in the upper Midwest each and every week. Facebook, YouTube, podcast. So find it all your favorite places. Join Ryan Aho, hockey coach Jeff Krause, and Bert Lehman is break down all the action weekly. Check them out right now.
Goatsports.